AITAH for nuking our sex life, NSFW obligatory PSAs. I am on my phone, so apologies for formatting, and this is a throwaway account. I'm also not sure what could be relevant, so I apologize in advance for the long post. My husband, 28M, and I, 27F, have been arguing a lot about our sex life since I had our baby, 1. I know this is a common issue couples face, and we surprisingly didn't struggle with it until about 3 months after baby was born. He was very excited to revive our sex life after my 6-week appointment, and thinking back, I honestly can't be sure if I was excited or if it was something else. Sex used to be a way for me to feel close with him, as he can be a bit of a self-admitted bully. So our moments of intimacy were a reassurance to my anxious self. I think I wanted that reassurance after having the baby with how insecure and detached I was feeling. We didn't have as regular of a sex life until I healed a bit more. I had a C-section, but it did increase after a few weeks. Then I went back to work, from home, which was easy when baby was a potato. I'd wake up and go to bed about 4 or 6 hours after he does, working in the afternoons until dinner. Put baby to bed. We'd have our time, and then I'd have my time. I was almost back to full time, and we had a balance. But I found out my husband was slowly getting jealous of the time I was able to sleep and have to myself. He went to the gym 2-3 times a week, but then would clean and obsess over projects, things around the house the other days. He said if he didn't clean, it would never get done, but he wouldn't let any of our family or friends ever help out. I wasn't sure what to do with how tired I was from nursing and working. He does cook our meals and handle daily chores, on top of working about 6 hours a day with his commute. I appreciate all he does, but with nursing, errands, appointments, my chores, work, and just life, I couldn't keep up with his standards. I now mostly work nights, and we have an offset schedule. Baby is on my sleep schedule now too. It's a good idea for everything except our sex life. It allows me to handle night feeds, get my work done, and spend the day running errands or going to appointments as needed. The issue on my husband's end is that he has to stay up late for one-on-one time, thus putting himself into a sleep deficit and growing increasingly tired. I tried to encourage him to go to bed early most nights, and only really stay up late on weekends when he can sleep in. I'd even go up to bed with him and hang out until he fell asleep before going to work. Thankfully, my work has project-based deadlines and does not require set hours. I thought we had found some balance, and we're at a satisfiable amount of sex, but later found out it was actually an issue. There was also a side problem. I had an IUD placed 1.5 months postpartum, and we thought it'd be all fun and games. But my IUD strings were too short and could be painful for my husband, even drawing blood a few times. This understandably made him hesitant to have sex regularly. Add this to our fragile work-life balance, and we started to have other issues. At the 3-month mark, 2 months into the sleep-work mess, we started fighting more. His jokes and jabs started wearing on me, and the postpartum depression kicked in hard. Our fights escalated to unhealthy levels, and I got my IUD removed at 5 months, 4 months into having it, hoping it would help balance my hormones, which he kept blaming. We were put on a wait list for therapy, counseling, individual and couples, and tried to recover from the damage done. He tried to treat me kinder, reassure me I was attractive, and support my needs. I tried to be more patient and calm, give him his self-care time, and help more around the house. My work has taken a hit, my hours are cut in half, but I don't know how else to manage everything. I'm making enough to cover my share of the bills, so we can't go out or buy luxury items like we used to. But I'd rather that over the fighting. Things were great communication and teamwork-wise for 2 weeks. But our sex life was non-existent at this point, with my husband choosing video games or a project over time with me. Like, as soon as we finished dinner, he'd hand me the baby and disappear. I made a few advances on nights the baby went to bed early and was turned down so he could play games. After a week, I told him how I felt like I was the least important thing in his life, and how, with all the emphasis we put on working on us, it made me feel terrible. I thought the point was to be a top priority in each other's lives. I was making the effort to treat him as such, and I acknowledged we both did damage. But if we want to recover, then I need to see that he's trying too. Not just sex, but any quality time would make me happy. It felt like we were parenting roommates, not a married couple. Looking back, maybe that is all we were at that point. I might have just been selfish, but he said he understood and would put in the effort. After a few more nights of the same thing, we had a huge blow-up fight. It literally lasted all night and almost ended our marriage. We talked the next day, and honestly, we barely resolved anything. Since then, there's been little effort on both sides, but we were trying to keep things together while waiting for counseling, therapy. After some really good days, I tried to initiate sex and was again turned down. 2 nights of this led to the title of this post. I gave up on our sex life. I told my husband I was going to stop relying on him for sex and would just masturbate as needed. He shot back that, "It isn't fair that I'm being punished for being too tired to have sex at the end of my day, but middle of yours." I replied that he only ever initiated while our daughter was napping in the living room, trying to have sex in the bathroom, kitchen, dining room so we could keep an eye on her. I've told him multiple times that I'm not aroused in that situation. He said he could wake me up in the morning before he goes to work to replace his daily masturbation session with sex. I said that was worse than me requesting it before he goes to bed. I'd be half asleep and barely interested, whereas he's at least interested at night, and I'm willing to put in most of the work. He just huffed and puffed and said he was going to sleep. I reminded him of my decision the next day, and he kind of rolled his eyes and shrugged it off. 3 days in, he's joking about how I'm plotting against him to make him beg. Someone must have given me this idea, and how I can't keep this up forever. I replied with, "Not forever, just until we decide if we want another kid, since that's all sex is good for now." He laughed and joked about that, but then started putting in effort to seduce me for the new few days. He'd get handsy and call me sexy, and I'd always reply with something like, "That's not for you," or "That won't get you anywhere." I completely stopped being physical with him to avoid encouraging anything more, and when he'd try for anything more than a hug, I'd tell him I wasn't interested. A week in, he realized I was serious and got upset. He's mad I'm masturbating, mad he can't have any physical affection, the hugs stopped at this point, and mad that I'm punishing him. I'm tired of being rejected and being told I'm selfish for only wanting to have sex when he's tired, instead of when he actually wants it. I told him that since we don't want it at the same time and that makes me selfish, I'm not asking him for anything anymore. I know we have our issues. Reading this back feels like I'm reading someone else's post. But we can't just go to therapy or give in to what the other wants, as it's a lot more than just a simple disagreement. Hence the long post to try to explain how it's a culmination of multiple factors. I don't think there's any advice to be given, though I'm open to it. I honestly just want to know if I'm overreacting, making me TA. Thanks for making it this far. TLDR. After a lot of fighting, almost divorcing, and being rejected sexually multiple times, I told my husband I'm no longer going to try to have sex or any level of physical intimacy with him. We're waiting to get into therapy and counseling, but I don't know what else to do until then. We're honestly trying not to get a divorce.